Rev up your engines!
Omar Lopez says, Scotty, I got a 97 CRV, 189,000 miles, and an 06 Odyssey, 152,000 miles. Bought them used. I know Hondas need valve clearance service. I don't know if they were done. Is this a must-do item? Yes, I would do it on both of them right away. It can ruin the engine if they get too loose or too tight. A lot of times on Hondas, they carbon up and they actually get too tight, which will destroy an engine. Hondas are kind of dinosaur technology. They're still using valve adjustments that have on a threaded rod. You loosen the bolts and you tighten them until the feeler gauge is just the right and you set them. A lot of the American cars and many other cars use hydraulic ones that adjust themselves. You never have to touch them as long as the hydraulic lifters work. And some of them, like Toyotas, they have stainless steel shims. And theoretically, they need adjusting. But since it's a stainless steel shim, a lot of times they don't wear. And I have seen vehicles, my 94 Celica, that has 240,000 miles on it. The valves have never been adjusted. Previous owner of the car was one of my customers. And when I took the valve cover gasket out because it was leaking, I thought, I'll check the valve clearances. I did, and they were still within tolerances and did not need adjusting after 240,000 miles. So it's important on Hondas. I would have it done soon. You don't want the engine to wear out the valves, or then it costs a fortune to fix the engine. Kate Cindy Panama says, any thoughts on Car Shield warranty? I see it advertising, but I don't know. Okay, you see something advertised? There's a reason they're advertising. It's because they're having a hard time selling the stuff. Any warranty, you can watch some of my videos on why car warranties are crap. All you're doing is you're buying an insurance policy through an insurance company of some sort, right? They never want to pay out when I have to. They'll take your premiums, but when it comes to payout, they find excuses. And when you read the fine print in those warranties, it's a joke, because in order to comprehend what it will cover, you'd have to be a lawyer, but you'd also have to be a mechanic to understand what each particular word meant in terms of how a mechanic fixes cars and what it means in the mechanical capabilities of a car. You're not going to find too many mechanics out there. Understand the lawyers and the mechanics, you're not going to find any. So what happens invariably is the lawyers at the warranty company say, no, we don't pay for that. What are you going to do? Sue an insurance company? Most of that stuff is a line of baloney. I've had customers buy the stuff and it's just a rat's nest of lies half the time. They never fix anything correctly. They say you didn't maintain your car, it's your fault, or whatever. I would stay far away from those things if I were you. Because they're insurance companies. They're in it to make a profit, not to fix your car. Barack's singing, he says, Scotty, between the new Toyota Tacoma and Honda Ridgeline, which is better truck? Also, if it's a Tacoma, would you go with a 4 or a V6? Well, the Tacoma's a better truck. It's going to last longer. There's no arguing that. Whether you get a 4 or 6, that depends on what you want. The 4s generally last forever, and the 6s last a long time too. You're going to pay less for a 4. You're going to get a little bit better gas mileage. But on the other hand, let's say you're planning on towing. If you're planning on towing a lot of stuff, the V6 is going to tow a lot more than the 4-cylinder can. So you kind of got to decide, what are you planning on doing? If it's just a normal truck, you're going to drive it around, you'd be more than happy with a 4-banger. My son's got a 2-year-old 4-banger Tacoma, and he loves it. Adam Wheeler says, Scotty, I own a 2018 Chevy Colorado with a Rocky Ridge package, 20,000 miles. What do you think of it and the Rocky Ridge package? I'm not a GM fan by any stretch of the imagination, but if I was going to get a GM product, probably the Colorado was what I would get. They are decent, small pickup trucks. Well, now they're not that small. They're a little bit bigger, but, you know, they're equivalent of Toyota Tacoma. And you're going to be able to get a Colorado a lot cheaper than a Tacoma by far. It's not going to last 400,000 or 500,000 miles generally like they do. And with the Rocky Ridge package, it's a little bit heavier built. It's better than their standard cheapest one that they make. So it could be a very good truck if you take care of it. Ian Thornton. Hey, Scotty, my grandpa wants to get a brand new 2021 Toyota Sienna hybrid van. I'm not sure if he wants to lease or buy. He usually keeps his vehicles for a few years and then gets rid of them. Well, if he's going to do that, then lease. The main thing I've got against hybrids is as they age, they cost a lot of money. I had a customer that had a Toyota Highlander, non-hybrid, had 550,000 miles. Then he traded it in and got a Highlander hybrid. At 140,000 miles, the electric rear differential went out. It was going to cost them thousands to fix, and he ended up getting rid of the vehicle. So I'm not a fan of that, but if your grandpa doesn't keep them that long, you're better off just leasing and then just getting rid of it, because if you buy and get rid of it in a few years, you're going to lose, because the resale value goes down the first few years of any vehicle quite a bit. You might as well just lease the thing. Colin Digman says, Scotty, I got an '08 Chevy Impeller. When you accelerate, it starts bucking and the speedometer bounces up and down. I don't think it's a transmission. What could it be? Okay, the simplest thing think it could be, and I've seen it happen on those, is there is a part called the speed sensor. It bolts onto the transmission. It tells the computer how fast the vehicle is going. If that sensor starts to break down, your speedometer will bounce up and down, and it'll start to buck because it confuses the computer, and it doesn't know what gear to have the transmission is, and it can go absolutely bananas. Now, it is a 13-year-old Impella. It could be the transmission itself going out. I've seen them do that. But go to like AutoZone, buy the speed sensor, bolt a new one on, plug it in, and pray it fixes your problem, because I've seen it fix it. If not, it's probably the transmission go out, and then you'll probably just get rid of the car when you find out how much it's going to cost to rebuild. Brandon Sparks says, Scotty, help save my marriage. Does blasting the heat as soon as the car starts make the engine take longer to heat up in the winter, or is it better to wait? Wife and I can't agree. Well, yes, it will take longer to heat up if you blast the heat on. Here's what you got. You got a radiator in front of your car, right? That takes heat from the engine, dissipates the heat. But you got a heater core. That's inside the car to heat you up. That's just a miniature radiator. It also takes heat from the engine. So if you put it on full blast, it's going to take heat from the engine, and it's going to take longer for the engine to reach operating temperature. So the best thing to do is just start the vehicle up, put the heat on just low, little bit of fan blowing, and then wait a few minutes, then come in and turn it on high and melt everything. OMG Cheater says, Scotty, what do you think of the Toyota Tercel four-wheel drive wagon? Well, I had customers with them back in the day, and they could go a long time. My customer had like 195,000 on his and still ran okay. The only problem is the Tercels, for we mechanics, got the nickname turd cells because, one, they were very slow. They couldn't get out of their own way. And two, they did have problems. A lot of the Tercels burnt oils because they had bad oil seals on them. And if you happen to be unlucky enough to buy one before they went to fuel injection, when they had those crazy side draft motorcycle carburetor designs on them, those were terrible too. So, they weren't the greatest of cars. But the four-wheel drive ones, they ran fine. And people I knew had them, they had no problems with that system. And if you had the fuel-injected model, you didn't have to worry about that. Cadaver Boy said, would you recommend changing manual transmission oil on a 250,000-mile Acura TSX 2010? Yes, I would. Here's the thing about manual transmission fluid. All it is a bunch of gears, and it's splash lubrication. The gears on the bottom splash the oil up to the top, and it goes down, and then splashes around. There's no oil pump or anything in it, like in your engine or your automatic transmission. So yes, change it, because you don't want dirty fluid ruining it, especially if it gets dirty. It's friction. It can eat the seals, then it will leak fluid all over. Definitely change it. It's not like with automatic transmissions. If you change them with too much mileage on them, they'll start to slip. It has nothing to do with slippage, because those are gears that mesh mechanically together. They're not run by fluid friction. They're run by the actual gears pulling on each other, so it won't hurt anything. RG says, how long do you think a 2016 to 20 Civic with the 2-liter engine without the turbocharger will last? They can last a long time with no turbocharger. Honda makes probably the best engines in the world for the money. Toyotas tend to last a little bit longer, but Honda is the #1 internal combustion engine maker in the world of all internal combustion motors. They make millions of them every year, just the motors. They sell them for everything: lawnmowers, power supplies, boats, cars, trucks. They make them for all kinds of stuff. So that car can last a really long time. And without a turbo, it's not being overstressed. Brenton Wiempkin says, Scotty, what do you think of an '02 Pontiac Firebird with the WS6 package? It's the LS1 engine with the manual tranny, has 16,000 miles. The guy's asking for 26,000. It's garage kept. All right, well, that's an awful lot of money, but people like those with the Corvette LS1 engine and the manual transmission. And where on earth are you going to find one that has 16,000 miles on it that's a 19-year-old car? If you like it and you want it and you got the 26 grand, you never know with something like that. A car at that age is only worth whatever anybody else paid for it. So offer a lot less and see if the guy's going to budge. And if you really want to buy it, pay whatever you want to pay, because it is a collector's item with that setup and a standard transmission with that small amount of mileage on it. You're getting into collector's cars then. So, I personally would never pay that kind of money, but, that's whatever the market will bear. You offer less and you see what the guys will take, and if he won't take it, you might call him back in a month or two, and if it's still for sale, he'll probably take a lot less then. Sonny D says, Scotty, what does planned obsolescence mean for used cars in the future? Well, if we eventually go to fully electric cars, horrible things for us as consumers, because electronics can be designed to break, in 365 days, 1 hour and 12 seconds, and then turn themselves off. And I wouldn't put it beyond people to build things to break like that. Mechanical stuff, they can make them cheaper that eventually they break. But electronics, they can engineer them to shut off at any particular period in time. I would imagine planned obsolescence would be worth, look at our phones, you know? You get our phones. Sometimes they stop supporting them after they're 3, 4, 5 years old. So that's the problem with electronics. There's a lot more planned obsolescence in them than in anything else. Irvin 808 says, Scotty, what's the best Toyota for bad roads with potholes? I'd have to say Toyota 4Runner, because the 4Runners, they're still made in Japan and they're still made with solid frames. Solid frames can take potholes because you got a solid steel frame. With the regular vehicles, they're what's called unibody. There's no actual frame. The whole car is a frame in itself. It's a lot thinner. It can bend. Hitting bumps can wreck stuff. But when you got a solid steel frame, it takes an awful lot to bend a solid steel frame. So I would say the 4Runner would be best for big potholes. Plus, it's higher up in the air, so you won't get stuck. Because if you're in a low-to-the-ground car and you hit a pothole, it might scrape the whole bottom and knock a hole in the engine. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.